हम लोग मौर्यन एम्पायर पे बात कर रहे थे, मौर्यन एम्पायर पर। और मौर्यन एम्पायर पे लास्ट सेशन में हम लोगों ने एक स्ट्रक्चर समझा, एंड देन वी ऑल्सो स्टार्टेड discussing the debate regarding the Mauryan Empire. Right, we started discussing the debate. I told you that the earlier we considered it as a highly centralized empire. Right, highly centralized empire. Then we mentioned a name, Fussman. You remember this name? He argued that it cannot be a centralized empire given the extent of the empire and the communication network. Right. Mauryan Empire could not possibly have been centralized. So you have to mention this name. And then he also gave the argument that at local level, provincial level, there was local script used, local language used, local content used. All this in inscription suggests some local initiative. So therefore, it was not centralized empire. Then Romila Thapar modified her view. She also earlier considered it as a centralized empire, but later she modified, Maurya revisited, and she started explaining that this empire had metropolitan core and peripheral areas. And probably metropolitan and core areas was more centralized, peripheral areas decentralized. And then you can always write the conclusion part. Conclusion also you can use this, that the empire must have had some element of centralized control, but given its extent, there must also have been a significant amount of delegation of authority to functionaries at provincial, district and village level. So this can be your conclusion. If they ask you it was centralized or not, you can write that थोड़ा तो centralized control का element था उसमें, लेकिन delegation of authority भी था at provincial, district and village level. So now see, हमारे ऑप्शनल में बच्चों कुछ एरियाज होते हैं जो ज्यादा पॉपुलर होते हैं क्वेश्चंस पूछने के लिए. Mauryan administration is also one very popular area. And one more popular area is development of religion in Mauryan period, particularly the policy of Dhamma. तो हम लोग इकोनॉमी सोसाइटी मौर्यन पीरियड में कैसी थी वो बात करेंगे, लेकिन उससे पहले थोड़ा समय डालते हैं, थोड़ा समय देते हैं मौर्यन पीरियड के रिलीजियस डेवलपमेंट पे. एंड दिस इज ऑल्सो पार्ट ऑफ आवर सिलेबस. सो नाउ द नेक्स्ट हेडिंग यू कैन गिव religion and the spread of religion in Mauryan period. Spread of religion in Mauryan period. Religion and spread of religion in Mauryan period. This area is very popular because they are asking question on religion. Religion and spread of religion in Mauryan period. Right. See, when we say religion in Mauryan period, what do you think? There was Brahmanism, there was Buddhism, there was Jainism, and there were other heterodox sects, So there was Brahmanical tradition and there was Shramanic tradition. Brahmanism and Sramanism, both. So what exactly was the status of religion in Mauryan period? What do you think? That the Mauryan rulers negated Brahmanism? Or what do you think? Mauryan ruler, they promoted only Buddhism? Right. Brahmanism, this word, they generally, right, use for Vedic religion, Diksha, Vedic religion. So, what is your opinion? In the Mauryan period, which religion played important role? They supported all religion? What do you think? In Mauryan period, whether they supported all religion? You must be knowing, and I mentioned also, that Brahmanism was not very popular, and of course these two were the popular religion. These two were the popular religion. These two were popular. But it also continued, right? It was also respected. It was also respected. Brahmanism also respected. But of course Buddhism and Jainism, they were more popular. And I hope you remember that the Mauryan ruler, they followed tolerant policy. Chandragupta Maurya favored Jainism, Bindusar favored Ajivakism, and Ashoka favored Buddhism. But they were respecting all religion. They were respecting all religion. Fine. So Brahmanism, we will not say that it was totally, right, negated or neglected. Fine. So we will not say this. Done. So we can add first point, that in this period, Buddhism and Jainism were the popular religion, but the Brahmanical faith continued. This you have to mention, that the Brahmanical faith continued. And we can add that Kalhan in his Raj Tarangini, described Ashoka as worshipper of Shiva. Ashoka as worshipper of Shiva. Ashoka as worshipper of Shiva. This is very important. This is very relevant. Kalhan in his Raj Tarangini described Ashoka as worshipper of Shiva. Fine. We can mention that most of the rulers of the Mauryan Empire, they were known for their tolerant behavior. But Chandragupta Maurya favored Jainism in the last phase of his life. Chandragupta Maurya favored Jainism. And Bindusar favored what? Ajivakism. Bindusar favored Ajivikism. Fine. So, most of them were tolerant. And we can mention that Ashoka was also influenced by Buddhism. Fine. We will elaborate this. Ashoka's connection with Buddhism. Ashoka's connection with Buddhism. We will elaborate this. They can ask you a separate question on this. Right? Yes, we have many examples where Ashoka highlighted his tolerant approach. I will come to that. But first, how we are saying that Ashoka, right, was influenced by Buddhism. Ashoka's connection with Buddhism. How can we prove Ashoka's connection with Buddhism? First is evidence. First is his connection with some Buddhist monk like Upagupta. His connection with many Buddhist monk like Upagupta. His connection with Upagupta. Most of the literature suggest, most of the historian, suggest his connection with Upagupta. Right? Who was Upagupta? He was the leading monk of that time. His connection with Upagupta. Most of the literature suggested it. Fine. Then we can also mention that the Buddhist literature suggested that he constructed 84,000 stupas. 84,000 stupas. Right, you will see Buddhist text suggested that he constructed 84,000 stupas. Stupas were constructed after the death of Buddha. And in the original stupa, there was relic inside. And Ashoka, right, claimed in some of the Buddhist text that he constructed 84,000 stupas. It must be an exaggeration, but अगर 84,000 बोल रहा है तो 1000 तो होगा ही, 500 तो होगा ही. It also suggests that he was connected with Buddhism. Then in his inscription, third point, in his inscription he mentioned that he visited many places related to Buddha's life. He visited many places related to Buddha's life. Visited many places related to Buddha's life. You must be knowing, you can give example of visit of Lumbini. He visited many places related to Buddha's life. Right? So this is also one indication that he was connected with Buddhism. Number 4, in Pataliputra Buddhist Council, third Buddhist Council in Pataliputra, third Buddhist Council in Pataliputra. So this is also suggestive of his connection with Buddhism, which was presided over by Moggalliputta Tissa. And then it is also mentioned that after this Buddhist council, a number of mission dispatched, dispatched to different areas, dispatched to different areas. This kind of evidence. For example, Majjhim was sent to Himalayan region. Majjhim. Example, Majjhim was sent to Himalayan region. Himalayan region. Majjhim was sent to Himalayan region. Right. For example, Maha Rakshita was sent to northwestern area. Maharakshita. Maharakshita was sent to northwest area. Northwest area, Maharakshita. These are some names mentioned. Majjhim was sent to Himalayan region. Maharakshita was sent to northwestern area. Yona area it is mentioned, northwestern area. And yes, Prasan, his son Mahendra and daughter Sanghamitra, his son and his daughter was also sent for the promotion of Buddhism. So you should remember for your preliminary also Majjhim, Maharakshita, right? So there is a list given how a number of mission was dispatched after the third Buddhist council, for the popularization of Buddhism, But it is very interesting that he did not mention this council in his inscription. Fine. So this kind of list we have, different names we have, how they were sent to different parts for popularization of Buddhism. Right? Then in his minor rock edict, number 5 you can mention that in his minor rock edict, he accepted his association with Buddha, he accepted his association with Sangha. In his minor rock edict, he clearly accepted his association with, you can say, Buddha, his association with Sangha, right? So these are some important, indicator. These are some important indicator, right? You can mention that he was associated with Buddhism. He was associated with Buddhism. But he never highlighted Buddhism through his state machinery, and through his inscription he talked about the policy of Dhamma. Policy of Dhamma. So what exactly was this Dhamma? What was Dhamma? And whether it was different from Buddhism or it was same as Buddhism. This is the real question, that this Dhamma and Buddhism. So what is the relation between Buddhism and Dhamma? When he accepted Buddhism, and we are getting some indication also regarding his association with Buddhism, then why this policy of Dhamma again? how this Buddhism and Dhamma are interlinked, or you can say linked. Can you throw some light on this? अगर अशोक बुद्धिज्म को अपना चुके थे, बुद्धिज्म के इन्फ्लुएंस में थे, तो फिर अशोक अपने इंस्क्रिप्शन में धम्म की बात क्यों करने लगे? क्या होता है ये धम्म? क्या ये भी एक रिलीजन था? क्या ये बुद्धिज्म ही था, या ये बुद्धिज्म को छोड़ के उन्होंने धम्म अपनाया था? और जब बुद्धिज्म ऑलरेडी वो फॉलो कर रहे थे, तो धम्म की बात क्यों कर रहे थे? व्हाट एग्जैक्टली वाज द मोटो फॉर दिस धम्म? कुछ हिस्टोरियंस के व्यूज का मदद लेंगे. वी विल टेक अप सम हिस्टोरियंस ओपिनियन. व्हाई? बिकॉज दिस इशू इज कॉम्प्लिकेटेड, है ना? वी कैनॉट टेक वन व्यू, वी हैव टू मेंशन डिफरेंट ओपिनियन. इज इट फाइन? Done. So we can mention Dhamma was Prakrit form of Sanskrit word. Dhamma was Prakrit form of Sanskrit word dharma. Sanskrit word dharma. There are different opinion by the historian regarding the nature of this dhamma. Different opinion. So the part 1 you will write different opinion. Part 1 of policy of dhamma you can write different opinion. Right? Different opinion. And here we can quote Dr. R.G. Bhandarkar, according to, right, Dr. R.G. Bhandarkar that Ashoka's Dhamma is nothing more than secular Buddhism. It was nothing more than secular Buddhism. So Bhandarkar was using a term secular Buddhism. He said, अरे धम्म कुछ नहीं है, ये बुद्धिज्म ही है, ये सेकुलर बुद्धिज्म है. According to F.W. Thomas, it was not Buddhism. It was separate. It was not Buddhism. He never mixed. Dr. V.A. Smith suggested that the Dhamma had all the feature of different religion. V.A. Smith suggested that Ashoka's Dhamma was common to all Indian religion. According to R.K. Mukherjee, very respected name, R.K. Mukherjee, according to R.K. Mukherjee, it was not a religious system. It was not a religious system. It was not a religious system. It was a moral system. It was a morality. And most of the modern scholars, we can add that most of the modern scholars they believe that the personal religion of Ashoka was Buddhism. So modern scholars suggested that the personal religion of Ashoka was Buddhism. But he propagated Dhamma as universal religion. Universal religion. He propagated Dhamma as universal religion. It was a sort of universal religion. It was a sort of universal religion containing certain common elements in many religious traditions. Containing certain common elements in many religious traditions. Many religious traditions. And it was interpreted, Dhamma was interpreted as Rajya Dharma. Dhamma was interpreted as Rajya Dharma. So remember, the most important thing about Ashoka is personal religion is different and Rajya Dharma is different. This you have to appreciate, and this is the beauty of Ashoka. Are you appreciating it? ये सोचना कि राजा का एक पर्सनल रिलीजन हो सकता है और उसे अपना पर्सनल रिलीजन को भी मानने में, उसके लिए काम करने में कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, लेकिन पर्सनल रिलीजन को राज्य धर्म से नहीं जोड़ना चाहिए. राज्य धर्म इज डिफरेंट. एंड अशोका, राइट, a new experiment. He said, Raj Dharma should be something universal. And personal religion, it can be your choice. You can accept any religion. No convincing argument is required. Right? And both should be consistent. Your personal religion and Raj Dharma. So, modern scholars believed that probably he used Dhamma as universal religion. Probably he used Dhamma as Rajya Dharma. In that sense, can we say that Ashoka's ideal was more ethical? Ashoka's ideal or Ashoka's Dhamma was more ethical than religious. And therefore Ashoka is great. Therefore Ashoka is above all his contemporaries and ruler like him thinking like this. So I hope part 1 you are getting, and if they ask you, discuss different opinion regarding the nature of his Dhamma, you can use this opinion. Fine, you can use this opinion, and you can always mention that modern historians believe that it was more ethical than religious. Now, part 2, why this policy? Why Dhamma? Why Dhamma? There are 2-3 opinions. Part 2 we can mention now. Why Dhamma? What was the reason for Dhamma? Then we will come to features of Dhamma also. Right. So why Dhamma? So there are 2-3 reasons given. 2-3 reasons given. Number 1 reason is his own belief. His own belief. Why Dhamma? Because his own belief. We all are free to have our opinion. Ashoka believed in this kind of ethical behavior, and therefore Dhamma. This is one view. Second view is because the circumstances of this age. Because of circumstances of this age. Because of circumstances of this age. Because of the circumstances of this age. Different sect, very difficult to create homogeneity. I already told you, Romila Thapar also suggested that in an empire there is a need to create homogeneity, है ना? कोई भी जो empire होता है वो homogeneity create करने की कोशिश करता है. So circumstances of this age actually compelled him to think about this kind of Dhamma. And some historian elaborated this and say it was a political necessity. Political necessity. They say that holding a big empire, holding a big empire intact, holding a big empire intact was a challenge. Holding a big empire intact was a challenge. So Dhamma was used as a ideological tool. Dhamma was used as an ideological tool. Ideological tool. Dhamma was used as an ideological tool. You have to use this word to manage this big empire, to consolidate this far-flung empire, big empire. So remember this word, and this word is used by historian. Ideological tool. Ideological tool. So Dhamma was used as an ideological tool. And you can quote here Romila Thapar. You can quote here Romila Thapar, and Romila Thapar suggested that there was a practical advantage. There was a practical advantage of adopting this kind of policy to create unity among so divergent population. So he wanted a kind of cementing force according to Romila Thapar. So Romila Thapar also used a word, cementing force. Cementing force. She also used a word, cementing force. Are you getting this? That why this Dhamma? If they ask you why this Dhamma, we can use this. We can use these words. Fine. How it was universal? Because it had features of different religion. Now we will see features of this Dhamma. Features of this Dhamma. Features, part 3. Features of this Dhamma. Features of this Dhamma. Then you will understand how it was universal in its approach. How it was universal in its approach. Right? We can add, Ashoka never gave any formal definition or structure of this. Right? He never gave a formal definition and a formal structure of this. Formal structure of Dham. He never gave a formal definition and a formal structure of Dham. He elaborated some features of this in his edict. He elaborated some features of this in his edict. Like rock edict and pillar edict. What all features he elaborated? First feature you will see he elaborated was respect. First feature he elaborated is respect. Fine. He said that each member of the family should be respected. Second thing he also emphasized was that one should be considerate and liberal. One should be considerate. One should be considerate and liberal. 2. Brahmanas. 2. Sramanas. We should be considerate and liberal to Brahmanas, Sramanas, right? To our dependents, to our relatives. हमें सबसे प्रॉपरली बिहेव करना चाहिए, लिबरली बिहेव करना चाहिए. These are the 2 points which he elaborated in his pillar edict and rock edict. Then third point we can add, he advised the people to observe compassion and purity. He advised the people to observe compassion, to observe purity in his life. To observe compassion and purity. And then in the second pillar edict, major, you can say pillar edict, you will see he was using a clear-cut idea about Dhamma. Like he said, Dhamma was consisting of least amount of sin, minimum pap, least amount of sin, right? And many virtuous deeds. Many virtuous deeds performing. He was saying, he was trying to suggest Dhamma is minimum of sin, many virtuous deeds. So he was explaining this. Virtuous deeds मतलब जिससे आपको खुशी मिले. So in his pillar edict and in his rock edict also, he was explaining what exactly is Dhamma, what exactly is Dhamma. Suppose we can take some more example. We can add, he also emphasized ahimsa, non-violence. He also emphasized ahimsa. So it is also part of Dhamma. It is also part of Dham. Ahimsa, non-violence, is also part of Dham. He also emphasized leaving all sinful passions. Right, leaving all sinful passions. All sinful passions like anger, like dham, like pride, like anger, like pride was also dham. कोई भी sinful passion, अगर आप क्रोधित होते हो, it is sinful. अगर आप बहुत ज्यादा pride feel करते हो, तो it is sinful. So leaving all sinful passion is also dham. Leaving all sinful passion is also dham. Tolerating differences. Tolerating differences is also dham. This is a very important feature. Tolerating differences is also dham. This kind of idea is relevant even today. So you can always use all this, how Ashoka, contemplated all this for a better society, for a better order. Ashoka, he was, emphasizing these things, ahimsa, leaving all sinful passion, anger, pride. Then Ashoka was saying that the toleration is the key, toleration is the core, and tolerating difference will make you a better personality. And tolerating others or tolerating differences can create a better order for a society, a better political order also. Fine. So toleration is the key which Ashoka emphasized in his Dham, toleration. Can you see all these features of Ashoka's Dham? Respect, considerate, liberal, compassion, purity, then least amount of sin, many virtuous deeds, ahimsa, leaving all sinful passion, tolerating differences. These all words you have to use as features of Ashoka's Dham. And on that basis, you can say, you can suggest that it was actually what? It was a set of moral duties. So we can add that Ashoka's Dham was a code of, it was a code of moral duties. It was a code of moral duties. Seeing all this, code of moral duties. Fine. So when you write all this, you can mention that it was actually a code of moral duties. It was actually a way of life. It was actually a way of life. Code of moral duties or way of life. I hope now you understand what is the feature of Ashoka's Dham. It is a code. ये करना है, ये नहीं करना है ना पंकज? Right, किसी को रिस्पेक्ट देना है, डिफरेंसेस को हाईलाइट नहीं करके ऐसी बातों को हाईलाइट करना है जिससे जुड़ा जाए. तो अशोका का धम जो है वो लगता है जैसे एक वे ऑफ लाइफ हो, कोड ऑफ मोरल ड्यूटीज हो. इन दैट लाइट, if suppose they ask you a question, just think about a question. Suppose they frame a question that his dhamma, Ashoka's dhamma, was a collection of a high sounding high sounding phrases. Comment. You will have to write here features, but apart from feature, what you will write? फीचर के अलावे क्या लिखोगे आप? Yes, we cannot agree totally. We cannot agree totally. Yes, done. Well done. We cannot agree totally. Ashoka's Dhamma was a collection of high sounding phrases. Why we cannot agree totally? Because he tried to implement this policy. So part 2 you will write measures he took to implement this policy. To implement this policy. Implement these policies. He was serious about this. He was serious about this. Are you getting my point? And then in the end we will write that it was not only high sounding phrases, he was trying to implement this through his state machinery. He was repeating this, right, in his inscription, in his edict. Part 2 is important here. What kind of measures he implemented to, you can say, make these policy as effective policy, right? So we can mention measures he implemented, measures he adopted, measures he adopted to implement this policy. हमें याद रखना है कि उन्होंने कोशिश की इसको implement करने की, कुछ कोशिश की, उनको बताना है. इसका मतलब वो केवल भाषण नहीं दे रहे थे, वो केवल हाई साउंडिंग फ्रेजेस की बात नहीं कर रहे थे, उनके दिल में था ये कि ये सब होना चाहिए. And he tried to implement it. Measures he adopted. What all measures he adopted? We can add, he engraved all this feature on his pillars and edicts. He engraved all these features on his edicts. He engraved all these features on his edicts. Right? So, engraving all these features on the edict suggested what? He made it public. Then he stopped taking meat. He stopped hunting. He stopped hunting. He stopped hunting. He stopped taking meat. He stopped taking meat. He stopped hunting. Started emphasizing welfare work. Welfare work. पैटर्नलिस्टिक अप्रोच है ना. अगर आप किसी चीज के बारे में सीरियस हो तो यू पब्लिश इट, यू इंग्रेव्ड इट. Yes. Then we can also mention that he avoided, number 4, he avoided pleasure tours and he replaced it by Dhamma tours. He avoided pleasure visit or pleasure tours, right? What is called Vihar Yatra. Vihar Yatra. Vihar yatra, and he started emphasizing Dhamma yatra. धम्म यात्रा, अगर जाना है यात्रा पर तो धम्म के लिए, प्लेजर के लिए नहीं. नो विहार यात्रा. Vihar, Vihara. He avoided pleasure tour and he replaced it by Dhamma Yatra. Dhamma Yatra. He started implementing some of these ideas. You have to give example. Then he appointed Dhamma Mahamatas. He appointed Dhamma Mahamatas. He appointed Dhamma Mahamatas to popularize Dhamm. It is also his seriousness. It is also his seriousness. तो हम ये बताएंगे एग्जामिनर को कि ऐसा नहीं है कि वो केवल बड़ी बड़ी लंबी चौड़ी बात करते थे, वो खुद ऐसा पॉलिसी को इंप्लीमेंट करने के लिए भी इनिशिएटिव लेते थे. He gave responsibility to different officers to work like mother. Right, suppose next he gave responsibilities to his officers. What? To take care of the people, to take care of the people, poor people, है ना. रज्जुका को उन्होंने ये आदेश दिया था कि आपको मदर धाई की तरह काम करना है. तो अपने ऑफिसर को वो आदेश दे रहे हैं, अपने ऑफिसर को वो बता रहे हैं कि आपको ध्यान रखना है लोगों का. तो ये भी बताता है कि he was not only interested in high sounding phrases. Yes, he replaced Bheri Ghosh with Dhamma Ghosh. So all this we can mention and we can say that he was interested in implementation. He was interested in implementation of this, you can say, Dhamma. Now the next part is, what was the result of this policy? What was the result of this policy? Any permanent result? Any permanent result? आपने ये भी देख लिया है ना तुषार कि उसका मीनिंग क्या है, धम्म का मीनिंग क्या है, क्यों धम्म लाया गया, धम्म का फीचर क्या है, क्या धम्म के फीचर को इंप्लीमेंट वो करना चाहते थे, बिल्कुल करना चाहते थे. फाइनली इस धम्म का रिजल्ट क्या हुआ, क्या कोई परमानेंट रिजल्ट हुआ इसका, या सब केवल अशोक के जीवन काल तक था, उसके बाद सब बैक टू स्क्वायर वन. व्हाट वाज द रिजल्ट? नो परमानेंट रिजल्ट. राइट, so any permanent result? Answer is no. Answer is no. No permanent result. And if you quote Romila Thapar, you will see Romila Thapar. If you quote Romila Thapar, you can quote Romila Thapar. Romila Thapar suggested that it failed to provide a solution. It failed, Dhamma failed to provide a solution. Dhamma failed to provide a solution. Dhamma failed to provide a solution. I hope you remember I told you that Dhamma was conceptualized to provide a solution. धम्मा वॉज कंसेप्चुअलाइज्ड टू प्रोवाइड ए सॉल्यूशन। है कि नहीं बच्चों? जब धम्मा को लाया गया था तो यह सोच के लाया गया था कि यह एक आइडियोलॉजिकल टूल की तरह काम करेगा, सीमेंटिंग फोर्स की तरह काम करेगा, जोड़ने का काम करेगा, शायद इंपायर बड़े दिनों तक रहे, चलता रहे, ये ऐसा कोई काम करेगा। बट रोमिला थापर सजेस्टेड दैट it failed to provide a solution. It failed to provide a solution. It failed to provide a solution. Some historians say that it was too vague a solution. Right? Some historians say that it was too vague a solution. Dhamma was too vague. Dhamma was too vague. And therefore they say that after Ashoka it could not survive. After Ashoka Dhamma could not survive. उनके बाद धम्म सर्वाइव नहीं किया. But we can always say Ashoka tried to transcend that. Ashoka tried to transcend beyond parochial cultural tradition. Cultural tradition. Ashoka tried to transcend beyond parochial, beyond. He tried to transcend beyond parochial cultural tradition. He actually conceptualized Ashoka conceptualized a broad ethical policy. He conceptualized a broad ethical policy for the state. At least he conceptualized a broad ethical policy for the state. भले उनके बाद धम्म फेल हो गया हो, है ना, भले धम्म फेल हो गया हो, यह बात तो सही है कि अशोक ने कुछ बड़ा सोचा, अशोक ने कुछ फॉर्मूला दिया, एथिकल पॉलिसी फॉर द स्टेट. यस और नो? आप क्या सोचते हो? अशोक फेल कर गए अपने धम्म में, या वो अपने इंपायर को बचा के नहीं रख पाए? क्या उससे धम्म के सक्सेस को या धम्म के इंपॉर्टेंस को कम किया जा सकता है? आपको नहीं लगता कि उस जमाने में अशोक पैरोकियल अप्रोच से थोड़ा ऊपर उठे? सो अशोक एक्चुअली फेल्ड in that sense, if you can agree with Romila Thapar, that it failed to provide a solution. You know, आप सबको पता है कि after Ashoka there was decline. तो लोग कहते हैं कहां बचा पाया अशोक? एक भेग सॉल्यूशन था अशोक के पास. अशोक नहीं बचा पाया इंपायर को. लेकिन हमेशा कंक्लूजन में आप कहेंगे ठीक है नहीं बचा पाया, लेकिन अशोक ने कंसेप्चुअलाइज किया एक ब्रॉड एथिकल पॉलिसी फॉर द स्टेट. अशोक ने कंसेप्चुअलाइज किया कि कैसे स्टेट एक एथिकल कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट के पे चल सकता है. फाइन. एंड देयरफॉर वी ऑलवेज कंसीडर अशोक एज ग्रेट. We always consider Ashoka as great. It was a great concept, no doubt about it. So we will also conclude like this, that it was a great concept. It was a great concept. It could not get success. It could not save the empire. It could not save the empire. So now you have better idea related to Ashoka's administration, Ashoka's धम्म. और अगर बच्चों हम अशोका के एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन और धम्म को याद रखते हैं तो हम अशोका के बारे में एनालिसिस कर सकते हैं. वी कैन हैंडल अशोका. इज इट फाइन? सो हमेशा याद रखना है कि अशोका वॉज ग्रेट नॉट बिकॉज ऑफ हिज कंक्वेस्ट. ही वॉज ग्रेट बिकॉज ऑफ हिज आइडिया ऑफ बेनेवोलेंट स्टेट. ही वॉज ग्रेट बिकॉज ऑफ हिज पॉलिसी ऑफ धम्म. चलो अब हम लोग मौर्यन एम्पायर के कुछ छोटे छोटे टॉपिक भी करते चलते हैं, एंड देन फाइनली वी विल टेक अप व्हाई डिक्लाइन ऑफ मौर्यन एम्पायर. सो नाउ वी कैन राइट what was the economy of the Mauryan Empire. Economy of the Mauryan Empire. Economy of the Mauryan Empire. When you think about the economy of the Mauryan Empire, the key word is policy of regulating and controlling economic activities. Mauryas were known for policy of regulating and controlling economic activities. Economic activities. This is the keyword. ये हमारा कंसेप्ट का आधार होगा. ये हमारे कंसेप्ट का आधार होगा इकोनॉमी में. When you think about the economy of the Mauryan Empire, you have to think that the Mauryan rulers, they wanted to regulate and they wanted to control economic activities of the state. तो मौर्यन इकोनॉमी में एक्चुअली आपको कोई प्राइवेट इनिशिएटिव नहीं दिखने वाली, कुछ नहीं. सब कुछ स्टेट कंट्रोल कर लेगा. ये कीवर्ड है, ये आधार है कंसेप्ट का. इस कंसेप्ट के साथ चलना है इकोनॉमी में. मौर्यन पीरियड की सबसे खास बात यह है कि स्टेट जो है और किंग जो है उसमें कोई डिफरेंस नहीं है. किंग ही स्टेट है, स्टेट ही किंग है. और दूसरी बात, स्टेट सारे एक्टिविटीज को कंट्रोल करना चाहता है. कैसे? थ्रू अध्यक्षास. आपने देखा था ना अध्यक्षास, 27 अध्यक्षास. चाहे माइंस हो, फॉरेस्ट हो, इरिगेशन हो, एग्रीकल्चर हो, ट्रेड हो, क्राफ्ट हो, वेट्स एंड मेजर्स हो, हर एक चीज स्टेट कंट्रोल करना चाहता है. यह बड़ा विचित्र है. स्टेट खुद खेती करना चाहता है, खेती को एक्सपैंड करना चाहता है, टैक्स लेना चाहता है. स्टेट चारागाह पर, पास्चर लैंड पे भी कंट्रोल करना चाहता है. स्टेट पूरे रिसोर्सेस को मोबिलाइज करना चाहता है. अपने कोष को, अपने ट्रेजरी को भरना चाहता है. और स्टेट कहता है कि जब हमारे पास ट्रेजरी फुल होगा तभी हम वेलफेयर कर सकते हैं. तो स्टेट पूरी ताकत लगा देता है रिसोर्स को एक्सट्रैक्ट करने में, मोनोपोलाइज करने में, रेगुलेट करने में, कंट्रोल करने में. फाइन. सो दिस इज द बेसिक कंसेप्ट दिमाग में आपको रखना होगा. एंड वेन एवर दे आर आस्किंग क्वेश्चन, दे आर आस्किंग क्वेश्चन ऑन इकोनॉमी रिलेटेड टू दिस. नाउ I will highlight some point regarding Mauryan economy. हम लोग उस पॉइंट को समझेंगे. यूज करेंगे टू अंडरस्टैंड हाउ स्टेट वाज ऑल परवेसिव. फाइन. So point 1, first point in Mauryan economy. First point in Mauryan economy. We can add first idea of Mauryan economy. First point we can add that the majority of the population was agriculturist and state interested in growth of agriculture. Growth of agriculture. State interested in growth of agriculture. Agriculture एक फोकस एरिया था स्टेट का. We can add that every effort was made by the state for the growth of agriculture. Like state increase the area of cultivation. State increased the area of cultivation by clearing the forest. State increase the area of cultivation by clearing the forest. जंगलों को क्लियर करते गए और कल्टीवेशन का एरिया बढ़ाते गए. Then large number of slaves were brought to new land. Right? Large number of slaves were brought to new land to encourage cultivation. Very interesting. बड़ा विचित्र है ये. Large number of slaves were brought to new land. I will tell you in society that how in the Mauryan period there were different kind of slaves. Kautilya also mentioned different kind of slaves. So large number of slaves were used to encourage cultivation. This is also a state initiative. So no man was allowed to accept sannyas. No man was allowed to accept sannyas if he was capable of, you can say, producing. He was capable of cultivation. So in Arthashastra, this kind of language was also there कि अभी आपका उम्र नहीं है संन्यास लेने का, अभी तो आप स्टेट के रिसोर्सेस में बढ़ोतरी कर सकते हो. राइट? सो आइडिया वाज टू यूज द ह्यूमन रिसोर्स ऑल्सो टू प्रमोट एग्रीकल्चर. फाइन. देन we can also add that state was also interested in irrigation. State was also interested in irrigation. State was also interested in irrigation. State focused on irrigation. State focused on irrigation. So promoting irrigation projects, increasing the area of cultivation, bringing large number of slaves, right, for increasing the production, punishing those who are taking sannyas without, you can say, taking care of his dependents. So these all are used, in the sense that the state was interested in promotion of agriculture. Fine. So this is one point. I just I will just highlight some dimension in the economy so that you will understand that how state is interested in mobilizing resources, different kind of resources. Fine. So we will add some more dimension in economy, right? And we will take up society, and then we can also discuss, right, the decline part. Fine. So we will continue in the next session. Thank you.